You know, we're always told to keep our friends close. But what if that's the absolute worst advice you could possibly follow? Today we're diving into law number 2 from the 48 Laws of Power. And let me tell you, it's a really unsettling idea. It suggests that your friends are actually a bigger threat than your enemies. It goes against everything we think we know about loyalty, but as we're about to see, history tells a very different and often a much more brutal story.
So let me ask you this. Imagine you're in a serious crisis. Things are on the line, and you need someone absolutely loyal by your side. Who do you bring into your inner circle? Who do you trust?
I mean, the choice seems obvious, right? It's a no-brainer. Your best friend, the person who gets you, versus a former enemy, someone you've literally fought against. Your gut, your instinct, everything tells you to choose the friend. Every single time. But this law argues that's a potentially fatal mistake.
And here it is, in all its raw, unfiltered glory. The core idea is that friends can become a huge liability. They get spoiled, they get envious, and they might even start to feel entitled. A former enemy, though? They're starting from scratch. They have everything to prove and absolutely nothing to take for granted, which can make them a far, far more reliable asset. It's a radical concept for sure, but it's one we see play out again and again throughout history. As Voltaire famously put it, the real danger, the one you don't see coming, often comes from the people we let inside our defenses. To see just how devastating this can be when you ignore it, let's turn to a story from history about an emperor who learned this lesson way, way too late.
Okay, so our first story takes us to the Byzantine Empire. And this is a perfect cautionary tale about what happens when you completely ignore this law. Meet Emperor Michael III. He's young, he's inexperienced, and he is surrounded by schemers. He desperately needed an ally, someone he could trust completely. So who did he turn to? Not some seasoned political expert, nope. He turned to his best friend, Basilius. This was a man he had personally raised up from being a humble stable groom to a court insider, a man who, quite literally, owed him everything.
And here's where we see the tragedy just unfold step by step. Michael's generosity becomes a ladder for Basilius's ambition. First, Michael elevates him. Then Basilius convinces the emperor to get rid of his powerful uncle, a potential rival. With him gone, Basilius takes control of the army. And then, when a financially struggling Michael asks for his loans back, Basilius just flat out refuses. The final brutal step, he sends soldiers to murder his friend, his benefactor, in his sleep.
So what went wrong here? Well, the crucial point is this. Michael thought his favors, his kindness, would create unbreakable loyalty. Instead, they created resentment. You see, Basilius didn't feel gratitude. He felt burdened by all that charity. He started to believe he'd earned his success on his own, and his friend, the emperor, was now just an obstacle in his way. This quote just captures Michael's fate perfectly. Basilius knew all of his weaknesses. Why? Because Michael had let him in. He knew exactly where to strike.
But not every leader made Michael's mistake. Not at all. Let's look at an example of someone who understood this law intuitively and used it to secure their power for centuries to come.
Okay, so let's jump to 10th century China. Back then, becoming emperor was basically like painting a giant target on your back. The historical pattern was crystal clear. Your top generals, your supposed friends and allies, would eventually get ambitious and overthrow you. So when Emperor Sung took the throne, he knew he was surrounded by a pack of very friendly wolves.
But instead of resorting to paranoia and bloodshed, Sung chose this brilliantly subtle strategy. He throws a massive banquet for all his generals. But he doesn't accuse them of treason. No, he expresses his sympathy for them, saying he's worried their own troops might one day force them into rebellion. And then he makes them an offer they just can't refuse: incredible wealth and a peaceful, luxurious retirement. And just like that, his most dangerous rivals were transformed into harmless, happy nobles. Brilliant.
And this is where he just nails the second half of the law. See, Sung didn't trust his friends, but he actively recruited his former enemies. He would defeat a rival king in battle, and instead of executing him, he would pardon him, honor him, and give him a position at court. He even showed one rebellious king proof of his conspiracies and then tore it up right in front of him. These acts of mercy created a fierce, powerful loyalty that no friendship ever could. This is the absolute essence of Sung's strategy. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he assimilated them. He turned all that potential for destruction into the very foundation of his power. And the result? The Sung dynasty ruled for over 300 years. Okay, so we've seen the history, the stories. But what's the actual psychology behind this? I mean, why are friends so dangerous? And why can enemies be so incredibly useful?
Well, the difference really comes down to this. A working relationship with a friend is built on emotion. And emotion is vague, it's unstable, it's so vulnerable to envy and ingratitude. But a relationship with a former enemy? That's built on something much stronger, much clearer, mutual self-interest. They have a powerful motivation, this deep need to prove their newfound loyalty.
I mean, think about it. When we work with friends, honesty often takes a back seat to just being comfortable. We avoid those tough conversations because we don't want to rock the boat. Our kindness, which is meant to strengthen the bond, can actually feel condescending, creating this secret resentment. And ultimately, it often means we're choosing them because we like them, not because they're the most skilled person for the job.
An enemy, on the other hand, is like an untapped gold mine. They will move mountains to prove their worth. A pardoned enemy feels this profound sense of gratitude because they expected nothing and they got everything. The whole relationship is transactional and clear. And hey, even if they stay an enemy, they still serve a purpose. They keep you on your toes, they keep you sharp.
The historian Tacitus just nailed a dark but very true aspect of human nature. Gratitude feels like a debt, it's a weight on our shoulders. But revenge? That feels like a release, a pleasure. And that's the exact psychological trap that Michael III walked right into.
But, like all of these laws, this isn't some simple, absolute rule you can just apply blindly. So let's talk about the fine print, the nuance in how you actually apply this idea. So are there times when using a friend might be necessary? Yes, there are specific, calculated moments. But you have to understand, it is an incredibly risky move that almost always comes at a very, very high cost.
What kind of uses are we talking about? Well, sometimes you might need someone to do your dirty work, and a friend's affection might make them willing to take that risk for you. Or, even more cynically, you could use a friend as a scapegoat. The public is less likely to believe you'd sacrifice a friend, so it's a pretty convincing way to deflect blame. But let me be crystal clear here. Either of these tactics will destroy the friendship. That is a guarantee.
So what's the real takeaway here? It isn't to become some paranoid hermit who trusts no one. It's about maintaining professionalism and clear boundaries. The key is to keep a certain emotional distance in all your working situations, whether it's with a friend or a foe. You're there to work, not to make friends. And above all, never, ever let your guard down. Because as these stories show us, in the realm of power, nothing is ever truly stable.
And that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. When you really get down to it, who in your own life pushes you to be sharper, more focused, and more alert? Is it the people who always agree with you? Or is it the ones who challenge you? It's something to consider.